We are the keepers of our future and our past, and the names of our heroes past and gone, on whose courage, strength, and wisdom the Northshield stands. Teach their stories to your children, to our children, till their names are written in our blood and bone.
All right, welcome to the Griffin Tales series, where we hear about stories of the people of Northshield. I am your host, Sir Ajax. Today's guests are Dame Bridget and Master Caradoc. They are both members of the Order of the Laurel. Or not, sorry, Pelican. Pelican. My apologies. They're the birds, and bird is the word. And correct me if I'm wrong. Were you guys the first landed Baron and Baroness of Nordscopen?
No, we were the second.
Second.
That's part of the history that I was going to talk about.
Excellent.
And before Nordscopen, there was Great Bear.
That's right. Before Nordscopen, there was the Barony of the Great Bear.
I did hear about that.
Yes, and the Baron of that was Baron Tundra.
He's a tundra bear.
Well, he's also known in the science fiction world as, his name just fell out of my head. Baron Tundra?
Yeah.
What was his real name?
Richard Tatchie.
Dick Tatchie.
And he shows up in a science fiction story as the man in the soft hat.
Nice.
Permanently attached to his head. I don't recall who's the author.
Okay, see, we already digressed.
But that's okay.
Okay.
So we'll start with the early first question as an icebreaker is how did you start in the SCA?
Well, a co-worker of mine at a somewhat dodgy bookstore in downtown Minneapolis, I was talking to her about this really cool article I'd seen in Black Belt magazine about this barony in St. Louis, and these people sounded really, really cool. And she said, "Oh yes, that's the SCA." And I said, "Yeah, that's it. How do you know?" Well, her boyfriend was busy starting up a group at the University of Minnesota. So I said, I must go to this. But the university's closed. So we're going to meet at the former Baron Tundra's house, referred to as the Habitat. And my first meeting there, they had started meeting in May. I first showed up August
Of what year?
of 74. And they were doing a reorganization because they had just heard from the Middle Kingdom what the officer titles actually meant. And Seneschal was not just a recording secretary. They had to actually be in charge of stuff and make reports. So suddenly the person who had been that didn't want to do that job anymore. I volunteered for Herald. There was a tie in the voting. I think it was 3-3. Yeah, it's a large group. So we had a dart throwing contest, and I won. So I got to be an officer right off.
Nice.
And for a long time, I never knew him when he wasn't at least one officer. For a long, long time.
Yeah, there's stuff to do.
Yeah. So this was back in the days when whoever started the group was the automatic Baron and or Baroness. So when Great Bear died, it took a while for the group to be reorganized.
Almost 2 years.
So 76?
No, Great Bear died 2 years before Nordscopen started.
Oh, okay.
It was a memory by then.
Okay. So that was Michel de Belgique and Armando Nightsinger-Diath. Nightsinger.
Yep. My co-worker.
His co-worker. So they were the Baron and Baroness. They also had a few other or group offices, because at that point it was a shire. By the time I came in, let's see, I had a bunch, my family worked at the Minnesota Renaissance Festival.
Okay.
We made metal sculptures and show things. That's how I know how to do welding. Anyway. So we met a couple of people in our local merchant area, and they said, "Oh, hey, you might like this." And they invited me to an event in, I think it was it was probably 1981. Yep. And I went. It was a Guy Fawkes event. It was the last event autocrated by Margaret.
This is Margaret of Shaftesbury.
She wasn't a mistress yet.
No.
Margaret of Shaftesbury, who a lot of people might know. She's an author of the Murder at the War and a bunch of other mysteries.
The Dame Bridget mysteries.
And her latest ones are the embroidery, the needlework
Oh, yes.
ones. Anyway, and that's where I kind of fell in love with the SCA, because the daytime stuff was fun, but she had arranged for period fireworks in a nearby park. So the bunch of us trooped out, and we all oohed and awed, and then while we're watching it, somebody started singing, and everybody started singing, and it was like,
Oh, and it was the lightweight dirge, so cheerful.
But it was cool. It was cool. So that's how I got in. And then I kind of fell in love with the guy. Yeah.
Let's see.
We knew each other for like 5 years until that fall at the Ren Fest. We both went, "Oh, hi."
There's something about you.
Yeah. Somebody asked, "Well, what's one of the things that's kept you in this?" Say, "Well, I met a boy who is smarter than me and has blue eyes and has a great sense of humor and whose legs looked really good in a pair of tights." So that's what got me. So we've always been Nordscopen.
Okay.
Yeah.
First in the mid-realm and now in Northshield. But I was going to say, the region of Northshield has had many incarnations.
Oh, yeah.
As part of the mid-realm, it at one point covered even more ground. I laugh when I hear people say now how big Northshield is. It went a little farther north. It went a lot farther west. Saskatoon at one time belonged to Northshield.
Wow.
At one point when I was Deputy Kingdom Seneschal for this area, it was Wisconsin to Saskatchewan, and sometimes it was Montana. They weren't real clear about that. And Alberta, I believe it was, what king did that?
Not my favorite.
No,
Good.
Colin Fancy,
Corwin.
Corin du Soleil and Mavanwi signed over Alberta to the Kingdom of the West and its Principality of Ontario, because really that was just too far away for us to be governing, which made me wonder, why isn't Saskatoon too far away for us to be governing? But yeah.
We've been to Saskatoon.
Oh, I went at least once a year when I was regional seneschal.
We traveled a lot in our early days. Yeah.
Yeah, partly because one of the things we had kept hearing from people, we would describe to them what a royal court was like.
Oh,
and what it was like having the crown at an event. And they'd say, "Oh, I never saw that." "Oh, well, you've had like barons and baronesses come through, right?" "No." We should, we should do that. I'm pretty sure our barony knows what barons and baronesses are like. Um, so we should head out to the smaller groups, because one of the things we had found out at the very beginning of Nordscopen was that, isolated as we were, whenever anybody went to an outside event, the next Shire meeting, everybody crowded around for stories. What is this like? What does this person look like? Are ordinary people allowed to fight knights? All sorts of things that we had no faintest idea of. And it gave us a feel for what the greater kingdom was like. And, you could always just hop in a car, travel 11 hours and get to an event.
Yeah.
Like Maidens in Shambana. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is one of the later topics I know, but that's one of the things that amuses me now about what's changed and yet remains the same between when we were part of the mid-realm and now we're just Northshield, is how it's always much farther to travel west and north than it is to travel east. It's kind of amazing to me. It's like, oh, pretty sure it's the same distance both ways.
Yeah, there was a repetition of the conversation. So, if you like this so much, why don't you come visit us? It's so far. Yes, it is. So why don't you guys just keep coming down to us?
Well, and as wise Duchess once pointed out to me, with Northshield becoming its own entity, in a lot of ways, Nordscopen became the de facto capital, because that's about as far from both directions, all directions, that people are willing to travel.
Yeah, it's not the actual geographic center, which I think is somewhere around Alexandria
Yeah,
or something.
yeah, it's further north.
Yeah, the western edge of Minnesota somewhere.
We digressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alexandria is not too far for me, maybe an hour, 2 hours. But yeah, it's as far as the Minneapolis, Nordscopen area, you guys are the most established central area, which for me, that's 4 hours. For those that are past me, it's 9, 10-ish, which
Yep.
is not terrible. It sucks, but not terrible
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
if they want to come over. Because just for me to get to Minot, it's 8 hours. And
Right.
I'm just south of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can remember pulling into the border station at Pembina, Manitoba once, and the guard came out and she said, "So where are you folks going?" And we said, "Saskatoon," and it's middle of the night at that point. And she said, "Oh, well, I better not hold you up then." Yay. Wow, that was the briefest encounter we've ever had.
Now we need passports, which is why I've never got to go to Canada yet.
Yet. It's not
Yeah.
that hard.
I plan to get there, but right now the bureaucracy that is during the time of plague is very, very behind, slow.
It is. We all look forward to better days.
Yes.
Okay, persona. My persona is much briefer than Caradoc's persona. Bridget Nicasey is Irish. Everything else changes. Time, location, whatever, maybe the theme of the event, maybe what I feel like wearing that day.
Yeah.
Weather. Like,
Yeah,
that's why I'm in
Caradoc
my
started-
Norse today, because it's nimble winter time and this is warmer.
Yeah, Caradoc is I started off with the 14th century because I really liked the transition period from mail to plate. and mixed and stuff, and everything was so elegant, even though I didn't really have the figure for a cotehardy. And originally, I was, when I finally got down to dates, I thought, well, okay, how about born around 1399, and then I'd be one of the boys at Agincourt who were slaughtered among the baggage train, except for the ones who hid. So I'd be one of the ones who hid. That'd be cool. As time has gone along, this has become less tenable because I always wanted to stop before the damn Wars of the Roses.
Yeah.
But given my age, if I'd been born in 1399, it would now be 1468, something like that. No, harder than that. Anyway,
you'd be solidly
right
in
in the
Tudors.
middle of the unpleasant time before the Tudors. Oh, yeah, we haven't reached the 80s yet. So I've let it slide. And then there's seeing a look that would be really fun to try. And that's entirely dependent on who's willing to make stuff for me. So sometimes there's nobody willing to make stuff for my supposed period, or monarchs have come in from a different period, and wouldn't it be lovely of us to sort of try to not clash with them temporally too much? So yeah, I got lots more clothes than I ought to have. At one point I made up the story that, well, Caradoc's a border baron out in Wales, and we raise enough sheep to sell cloth and enough goats to eat, and leftover money can go to those people who come in ships and say, hi, this is what they're wearing in the Ottoman Empire. And go, the what? Okay. And then if it's wrong, of course, it's not my fault.
Part of the fun of road trips, especially with a lot of people back in the day when we were all poor students or youngsters, so everybody crammed into a car, was part of the entertainment was, Uncle Caradoc, tell us a story. And one of the stories that sometimes changed was the origin story of Caradoc.
Yeah, I think I did 4 on one trip.
Yeah.
That was all the way to Kalamazoo.
Well, one of them was he was as a baby on an island that was slowly sinking, and his parents put him into a coracle and sent him off.
Wrapped in clothing of green and white and black, and out of that he eventually got a suit made that didn't have an S on it or anything like that.
Awesome.
Oh, let me just say that, backing up a step,
Mhm.
I have always had a longer term interest in history, specifically European and English history, and specifically my interest has always been on the strong women, Elizabeth I, Eleanor of Aquitaine, Joan of Arc, because those were the real stories that were, closer to people like me. I mean, yeah, Robin Hood got me sucked in. I won't lie about it. But I didn't see myself as Maid Marian.
Right.
I saw myself as Robin or Little John.
Yeah, I was always interested in the tales from that era. I must have read 5 different versions of Robin Hood by the time I was 12, by which time also I knew the rules of English heraldry as expressed in Bautel's heraldry and all the other stuff like that. I also read Sherlock Holmes. It's not relevant at all.
But the author did do a historical fiction
The White
of the
Company.
White Company and Sir Nigel. And for those of you knight errants or anyone interested in what happened during the times of Agincourt or they are amazing stories. You can even get them on audiobooks if you don't have time to have the book itself. But I own 2 copies. They're amazing.
Awesome.
The wife got lucky and she found an early print in hardbound, and
Ah.
it sits where I can see it every day.
Would it be, did he ever have Pyle illustrate it?
Oh, Howard Pyle?
Yeah.
I don't think he ever did the White Company.
Okay.
I didn't even run into Howard Pyle till I was an adult for some reason.
Howard Pyle is an illustrator of, the Robin Hoods and the Ivanhoe and all those stuff.
Knights of the Round Table.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I knew all of them. I read Mallory.
Oh.
Yeah.
You were well read. As I said, somebody smarter than me.
I think The Hobbit and William Tell got me and sucked into the medieval periods.
I didn't get into The Hobbit or any of Tolkien until I was in the society. So
Yeah, I had Tolkien in my first year in college, which was '68. So it was pretty new to the American audience. She would have been way too young none of that.
Not way too young. I think I read it when I was 12.
I was 10.
So
Yeah. I wouldn't have been too young, but no, I miss trophy wife.
You probably were out running, climbing trees, and beating up the boys yet.
Oh, absolutely, I was. Absolutely, I was. I spent a lot of time at the library too, but yeah. Okay. Northshield history I've been part of.
Yep, now that's the big question.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we talked about I joined in 81, you joined in 74. When I joined, you were both the regional and the baronial seneschal, weren't you? Or was Rosenor baronial?
Yeah, I think I had managed to foist off baronial seneschal onto Rosenor or Robin.
Nope.
No, not Robin yet. No.
Not Robin yet.
So yes, Rosenor was doing that.
Yes, but I mean, Nordscopen was the first group that I'm aware of, even society-wide, correct me if I'm wrong, to ask to have its baronage removed for various reasons.
Well, okay, let me summarize the conversation with His Majesty at the time. I showed up and said, well, we've taken a poll, and of the people willing to speak and put their names on something, over half of them really wish these people would go away. And the response was, oh, we would have done that, except we thought you guys wanted them. It's like, slide. They were, as far at that time, the laws in the Middle Kingdom were changed. They had used to read territorial baron and baroness, when they step down, will be made a baron or baroness of the court. It was changed to may be made.
So they were not granted that.
Yeah.
They were also one of the laws that did not yet exist, the one that says baronage can't hold a baronial office such as seneschal or exchequer. Well, they would be one of the reasons for that. She held the exchequer for a long time, and
I think there were multiple cases where that was seen to be uncomfortable and difficult, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, back, I think even before we were a barony, the Baron of Yarravetlir, Thomas Toftomber, I remembered his name, was interested in starting up a region as Callantyre was forming at the time. And he was thinking all of the states whose zip code started with 5, which would have gotten us, well, among other things, Iowa.
Yes.
They had not yet committed to the Callantyre thing. At the Crown, yeah, so we started trying to encourage cross communication among groups up here. At the Crown Tourney, where we became a barony, I'm sorry, no, at a previous Crown Tourney, the first Crown Tourney held in Nordscopen, supervised by King Finbar and Queen Kaelin.
Yeah, before my time.
Yeah, Callantyre had a presentation at court and were formally recognized as a region within the Middle Kingdom. Formal recognition was kind of a dicey thing later, but
Yes, there was a point in time where the regions, for whatever political reasons that I can't remember right now, were not allowed to call themselves.
no group or organization of groups that does not already have an approved name can adopt one on their own,
That's where
except incipient ones, obviously.
that's where you'll get a lot of the non-geographical constructs.
Right.
The non-geographical construct known as Northshield, that was that period of time.
Yeah.
And that would have been after Mike and Michelle and Armando.
Yeah, by the time we got to that point, yes.
Yeah. So you were regional seneschal when they stepped down, and were,
Yeah.
yes, you were. Trust me on that one. And you became vicar of Nordscopen during that time period. And that was probably the first ever baronial poll in the mid-realm.
They must have had some before then.
Who had stepped down before then?
Well, there were places like Cleflands where nobody had stepped up. They didn't become a barony immediately.
Oh.
I'm sure there must have been. I'm betting Castle Rouge was asked who they wanted for Baron and Baroness. And their response was, "Hey, who wrote you the letter?"
Oh.
Okay, she's the Baroness.
Okay. Yeah.
So, for those of us that do not live in the barony, what is a vicar? Because that would be your guys' officer title for a specific function.
It's actually, well, it was kingdom-wide title for available for being the caretaker of a barony in the absence of a baron or baroness.
Oh.
So it's specifically designed to be short term. And you were it while we went through the selection process of, we had a variety of interesting candidates and combinations of candidates, including there were a couple of people that was just them, like just Caradoc, and then a couple of people who were part of couples like Caradoc and Bridget, and then
You could vote for either of those.
Right. So what, you were vicar a year?
Just about a year, yeah.
Just about a year.
Yeah, it's also in the mid-realm laws. It was also what you did if the baron and or baroness were gone for an extended amount of time. And they're just a placeholder. The expectation always was that those people would come back.
Right.
But not this time.
And in fact, we later, while we were Baron and Baroness of Nordscopen, We took a year off when our second child was born, Becca, and had a vicar, and that was Baron Jeffrey.
Oh, okay.
So he was our vicar. Not that we were grooming him or anything.
Oh, look, doesn't he look natural up here?
So for those that may not get that, because I want to start incorporating stuff for newcomers, because I forgot last time. In the absence of a king and queen at the kingdom level, we have regents. The vicar would therefore be their regent. And Nordscopen is a barony, which in order to be a barony, you usually have to have a populace of 50 or more. And they have their own officer structure. They must have a herald. They must have a seneschal. They must have exchequer, like the majority of other groups. But they also I believe you guys have to have a chronicler as well. Is that correct? And
I
that's
believe so.
the
been a
basic
long time.
requirements. Basic requirements for the rest of us in shires. Generally, just need at least 3 paid members that hold officer positions. Generally.
I think baronies also have to have knights marshal, right?
Oh, yeah, but I believe baronies have to have a marshal of some
Okay.
martial activity.
Right.
So
Okay.
could be an archery marshal.
Right. And a court baron, which is what I am, and they are as well, is a grant level award, which is kind of a medium of the road. It's the easiest way to say it, medium of the road award, given to you by a certain pair of royals, either for either long service, like excellent service, or what
Extraordinary
have
service.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't really fit anywhere else. And the other established region, of course, is when you step down from being landed baronage.
Right.
Mhm.
One of
Because
the first ones I saw made was basically, okay, you have all the peerages and you keep doing things. And all we have left is to make people see you and spot you when you're walking around. So here,
Who is that?
Sir Polydor.
Ah, okay.
I forgot what I
Yes.
was going to say. Oops.
So we were, I guess, elevated to the landed baronage after the poll. At was it a crown tourney? Yeah, I think it was
Yeah,
in Wisconsin. I don't remember which particular.
it was right on the shores of Lake Michigan, and
No.
it was a large city.
Oh, yeah, that narrowed it down.
Green Bay,
It was
Michigan, or Milwaukee.
Carrier.
It was
It was
Carrier.
Carrier.
But Cornham and Fondley were king and queen, right?
Yep.
And they had also given me my AOA on their first go round as king and queen of the middle. So for the longest time, the only awards I ever had were from Cornham and Fondley. And that reminds me that a lot of Northshielders, even in those long ago times, ended up ruling the mid-realm. So there was Cornham and Fondley twice.
There's Natan von Deritz.
Which was
Once.
before my time. And he's from Castle Rouge, right?
He's from Green Bay.
Green Bay, sorry. So Windhaven.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. There was Valerius,
Oh, yeah.
who in his crown tourney ended up switching consorts halfway through because, go ahead.
Oh, because the consort he had, who'd been approved by the crown, of course, decided this was way too likely to actually happen, and she wasn't willing to go through with that. So if he was to stay in, there needed to be an acceptable consort. Well, Lady Fern had been eliminated from the tourney by that time as a fighter. Well, she'd obviously already been found acceptable, and she, I guess, volunteered to stand up and, keep him in the tournament, which was kindly.
And he won, and they went on to be a lovely set of royalty. Then there was, of course, how could I forget Tarek and Fina? We were at that crown tourney that ended with, Tarek and Finn staring each other down. One would move. They'd be in a second. The other one would move. A couple more minutes, someone else would move. And it was like, come on, you guys. And they were just, you could just see the thoughts coming out of their heads at each other.
The mental game is everything.
Those are my favorite fights, is being able to see them make their moves in their head. I mean, you can't really see it, but you watch their foot twitch or whatever, and you're like, oh. But then he's seeing like two more moves ahead that if I do that, I'm going to die.
Well, yeah, or as I had pulled on me once in a crown tourney, somebody moved their foot and I was supposed to fall for what their next move was going to be. Little did they know that without my glasses, I couldn't see that far or see that.
Nice.
So afterwards, you're saying, I see you figured out my little mind game there. I said, what?
Oh, yes, I did.
Which is one thing. Wars in the SCA for me were a very different thing, because people would say, oh, look, those people are coming up. Who are they? And I'd say, people. Wait, Anstiora. I recognize Anstiora at a distance. That's who that is.
Can I go back to the crown tourneys for a second?
Okay,
I'm going to go back to crown tourneys. As we've alluded to several times, in those days, crown tourney was invitational. Basically, all the knights could always come in, and then the crown would invite people, which was kind of cool because they would invite, the up and coming hot sticks so that people could see and judge them accordingly. But they would also try and balance it out geographically. So if the crown was in Ohio or Indiana, a wise set of royalty would try and make sure that they had invitees from west of them, Northshield.
Yeah, things had evolved. At first it was, there are spots for all of the knights, and that's it. Not all the knights by coronation had announced that they wanted to be in. So you were going to have gaps. So to fill it out, coronation tournament and how you place there would determine who got in, which is how Michael of Borshaven got in. He won the coronation tournament hands down, I guess.
Nice. So they used it as a seed.
Yeah.
Yes. And this was before my time. That's just why I forgot it.
So after that, however, once it was invitation only, you could tell who was likely to be knighted next.
But it was also the ones that they thought maybe weren't such a hot up and comer, but could be a good ruler.
Well, that was an evolution too, because that was the point at which King Hugo decided that he was not going to be restricted by the number of knights for how many people were in his crown tournament. So he put 52 people out there, which was the first time I got in. And afterwards at like fighting practice, I'd say, look, you don't have to be a great fighter. They took me. It would be nice if your reputation was positive.
But there's a story with you and Hugo.
Well, yeah. There was a Viking exhibit at the museum here. Hugo showed up for it, and there was an event here. And during the event, I managed to one-shot a fellow who a couple weeks later was knighted. And Hugo said from the throne, wow, I picked you because people told me you'd be a decent king, but you can actually fight. It was the highest praise I'd ever gotten.
So
It's
that was
good.
good. So yeah, I'm on the side of Tarek and he wasn't. The side of Tarek and Fina that everybody should be in a crown tourney. And I have ideas for maybe adapting that invitational thing because what we've seen a couple of times now is that absent a formally announced invitation, sometimes what happens is the month, the week, the day before the crown tourney, there's a royal scrambling going, come on, you want to fight in the crown tourney, don't you? We need you. You would make lovely.
Yeah.
You'd be fine. You need to fight.
One of the crown tourneys in the mid-realm that I attended when we were still there had 17 fighters. And that was an indication of how difficult people had learned it was to be king or queen, how much work it was, and how much you were in the public eye. And every event you went to feast, people could watch you eat. If you weren't willing to accept all of that, don't be in the tourney. Eliyahu won that tourney.
Duke Sir Eliyahu.
Now Duke Sir Eliyahu, yes. He was Lord Eliyahu.
I say, do you want some more old names dropped at you? So we were around for the creation of Callantyr as a principality and then kingdom. In fact, we went to their first, Callantyr's first crown tourney.
Yep.
Where I found out that he can never shave off his mustache because he did for that event. And I was like, we were around for the creation of Eldamare. And both of those processes taught Northshield a lot about how we did and did not want to go through this process ourselves. Callantyr ended up hating mid-realm.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Well, they made the process a definitely antagonistic process.
When you say they, you mean Callantyr or mid-realm?
Well, eventually both. Callantyr was not being encouraged by the mid-realm, so their response changed.
Right.
And they didn't like people who lived in Ohio telling them how to run things. Well, okay.
Eldamare was less contentious, but it had its moments. They did not like, the mid-realm did not like when Eldamare created a regional warlord. That was just a little too close to.
Yeah, in a championship tournament.
Yeah.
And the winner got this thing put around his neck. And for some reason that was significant. Oh, it's made of leather? Wow, that sounds like a permanent kind of award. What?
So while Callantyr was less contentious, there was still a little bit of.
Eldamare was less contentious.
Eldamare was,
Yes.
yes, I said it backwards. So Northshield going principality. Thank you, Finn. Poor Tarek. He wanted to do it. A lot of us who were in favor, when this first started, I was perfectly fine with the idea of Northshield being a permanent principality.
That was my desire.
And there were obviously sections that were totally against the idea of anything even hinting at
The possibility of separation.
right. And I would say those factions were also geographically driven. You know, those closest to the mid-realm who more often had interactions with the mid-realm, therefore played with them more and therefore mid-realm played with them more, so they felt more loved by the mid-realm. Definitely had feelings of heartache. And the other faction, surprisingly, that was against this whole thing was Castle Rouge up north. Given it at the time, their mindset was,
You guys can go principality. We want to stay with mid-realm.
well, they liked what I always think of as the Fiddler on the Roof syndrome.
Ah,
God save the Tsar
and
God bless the Tsar and keep him far away from us. So, yeah. God, there was a long process. There was the Kingdom Explored for a group.
oh yeah, I was on that.
You were on that. I was tangent to that. There were a lot of meetings. We have a videotape of the, I believe, the first town
Northshield.
hall.
Yeah, there was a forum in, I believe, Fargo, and there was a big town hall. Was that in Winnipeg?
I don't think so.
Minot?
I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look.
Could have been South St.
But it was
Paul
all day
Forum.
long, and Finn came for that, and it's easily a 4-hour, a 2-hour set of video VHS tapes. So that tells you how long ago it was.
Yeah, listen up, younger Gen Zs. VHS.
We should probably get that.
Copied to CD at least.
Yes, put that
Maybe
digitized.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, yeah, and there's always the faction that, or the discussions, the difference of opinions of, we want to do everything different from the mid-realm. We want to do everything the same as the mid-realm. And then, the compromises in between all of that. It was a long process.
It was.
Um,
Felt longer than it probably actually was, but
yeah, so then there was the first coronet tourney.
Mhm.
Mission, South Dakota.
Was it? I don't remember.
Well, the
I
first-
remember David and Gwyneth one. No, wasn't the
yeah,
first one
that
in?
was in St. Paul.
Yeah,
Okay.
Nordscopen. Yeah, because Eliyahu and his first wife, Elena, I believe, came for that. Okay, so I'm a large person. I'm tall. Back then I was slightly skinnier, but they were one of the few people that we were Baron and Baroness at the time, that me standing next to them, I felt like a cow. That's how delicate and perfectly formed they are. Not many people make me feel like a cow. But
Well, the elegance helped a lot.
the elegance helped a lot. Yes. So David and Gwyneth won. You spent the rest of the day running around as their herald, trying to get the ceremony set up. And
This was after spending the tournament at the separate court of reading the principality laws into a court.
oh yes,
Because
speaking,
I was the chair of the laws committee. Accept the awards, not my fault. That was Iggy.
Hi, Ziggy. So there's a little piece of behind the curtain magic involved in that first court for Davith and Gwyneth. Do you want to tell that story?
Oh, well, it's embarrassing to me. Um,
But Gwyneth loves it.
yes, she does. It made her believe I was a competent herald. Yeah, so we had groups, not formal ones, but a bunch of heralds who all get their opinions in, always, on ceremonies, and we come up with ceremonies that were acceptable to, I believe, the Dragon Herald. It was okay. So they had been drawn up, printed. They're largely the same, well, in many ways, the same as they are now. Some things like you will establish customs that will live long after you was supposed to be only in the first one. But anyway, so yeah, it came time for the new principality officers to be sworn in. So I went down with the rest of them to kneel in front of their highnesses, and poor Berwin was given the Book of Ceremonies, and he's standing there going,
Trying to flip pages, looking for
because he's not finding it.
the oath.
And I turned, I looked up to make sure that he was in fact unhappy. And I looked over towards the royal court people, who included Richard, one of ours, as
Richard
Dragon Herald.
Morgan of
And
Cumberland.
they sort of did this, huh? And he went, so it's like, okay. I says, sort of stepped up, took the Book of Ceremonies, leafed through it a bit,
Picked a page at random.
picked a blank page, and said, I, your name here, and I recited the ceremony as well as I could remember from it, which of course, I suppose does not make Berwin look the best. But I was not thinking of that at the time. I was thinking of, there was a lot of adrenaline running through. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. We're looking competent already. Rah, 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 rah.
And nobody else at the time picked up on it. The audience didn't. It's like, oh, little glitch.
Yeah.
It's fixed. It's fine. But Gwyneth loves it because, hey, look, my herald can think on his feet.
Yeah, it's like, no, if your heralds were better, this would never have come up.
No.
So we have Caradoc for establishing Northshield Court Strict.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although I've had some of I forgot to tell somebody that they were going to be called up in court, and thank God they were present, and also an actor type person and could cover my mistake.
Romeo or
No, that was Royal.
excellent.
That was Con. Oh, how could we forget Con?
How could anyone forget Con?
Duke
and
Sir Con
Cassandra?
and Cassandra, the second, Northshield's second. But of course, he'd already been a Duke in Callantyre. So,
So yeah, sitting enthroned was a pretty familiar place for him.
and he's also a bard. A lot of people are familiar with Con's songs.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
I riff off him a lot.
Yeah. There's songs of his that I am trying to memorize because I think they should be sung more. So
Yeah,
Well,
it's
I know
all-
when you come over here, if you guys do, whenever we get to hold it, Hadrian's, we always try to do bardic because I know you love bardic, and we always do 2 cross and rite of passage, almost always consistently.
awesome.
Yeah.
And I've got one of our younger guys, he just fell in love with them and he just memorized them. And I'm like, yes.
That's what road trips are good for. Put in the tape and listen to the song and sing it over and over and over again. Awesome.
And
I
if
don't
you're
have-
And if you're a fighter and you're going up in elevation, sing because it exercises you and drink water. And then by the time you get there, you can still fight and not die.
Good thinking. Good thinking.
Yeah, as I recall, for the ceremony of being made prince, he was carried in on a shield borne by 4 fighters.
Khan was?
Yeah, I believe so.
No, Cassandra was.
Cassandra was.
Cassandra was.
See, I sort of had it. Yeah, okay.
Cassandra. I also love Cassandra. Hands wise with horse, earth, and steel, as the song says.
Wondreth.
Pottery, rapier, and equestrian. But she is also a tall woman like myself, so she and I would armored fighting. Yes, you're right. She and I would occasionally talk about some of the joys of being a tall woman. She was rather more muscular than I am, but more slender. So we were talking about that shield thing, and she's
athletic.
fit, athletic. Thank you. That's the words I was looking for. And she and I were talking about that particular, and she's going, people don't realize how much tall women weigh. They think we're just light little things. So, I'm checking off things.
But so back to the newcomer thing. Baronies are like a smaller version of the kingdom. Those that are landed are given a certain region to rule, and they are essentially, well, they're called fiefdoms, but they're essentially mini royals, and they do the jobs of their majesties for them. And I don't know about in the past, but now there's Nordelay, Blackmere. Oh, there's one more.
Toreri.
Toreri.
Toreri is really dead.
So, and it's a rather large area around the Minnesota area.
That is the Barony of Nordscopen. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, with cantons.
Yes.
Cantons.
Those other groups are cantons. Nordley is probably the longest existing, and is based in Northfield, where the colleges are, St. Olaf and Carleton.
And where
And-
our current majesty is.
Yes, that is where he is located. And Toreri was based out of the University of Minnesota. And it was always kind of problematic because of it being in the Barony Central.
Area.
Yeah, so that's kind of why it went away. And now Blackmere is the northern suburbs, the one that take an hour for us to get to when we hold events up there. It
Mhm.
takes us 45 minutes to an hour to travel from our house up there.
Yep.
So
Every time I drive, I'm like, yay, I'm in Minneapolis. I'll be there soon. And then I'm like, oh, wait, no, it's
Yeah,
one
yeah.
more hour.
yeah, one more. One more. So yeah, we've also seen the creation of Windhaven as a barony.
Yes.
Windhaven, Nordscopen used to be the baby barony.
Yeah, we were created just a few months, I think, after Care entered.
Yeah.
And Castor Rouge and Yarrow, of course, were from the dim mists of time to us.
They were. Let's see.
Why is there any more?
I'm checking off things on my list.
Okay.
Hey, you want war stories too, don't you?
Sure.
I'll tell a war story. Well, I'll start a war story and then I'll make Caradoc finish it. So we've talked about Nordscopen's first Baron and Baroness, and they were problematic and had issues. I mean, one of his famous lines was "blank them if they can't take a joke," and she had, shall we say, control issues. Isn't that a kind way of saying that?
Yes.
Control issues. But back when using scouts in wood battles was pretty new. So she was also fit and athletic. So she did that. Now, I always think it's a Pensic War, but you've corrected me.
It was border wars in Kentucky.
Border Wars in Kentucky. So she went out to scout and
yeah, she overheard, because she just walked up to where they were talking, she overheard the other side describing their signals and how they would know when it was time to do something and all of that. And she said it was, if I'm recalling, she said it was a horn that they were supposed to use. My mind immediately went to kazoo, because she had one. How well, it is actually likely she had a real horn too. Anyway, so she went off into the woods and found one of their divisions and got off to one side and made the sound, "We have spotted the enemy." And as they came towards her, she went farther away saying, and I think that was the, "We have spotted the enemy." And then she knows they were slowing down. So she did the urgent, "We're in the battle. We're fighting the enemy. Come quickly." And so that group tore off. As I recall, what was left of their army was still larger than the Mid-Realm. And I don't recall who won because I wasn't there.
No.
But I think that
But she led that group on a merry chase for the entire battle, keeping them out of the battle.
She was the first non-combatant to get a dragon's tooth.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's, for whatever else we say, I do believe that story should not be forgotten.
No.
But I will also say that one of the first times we were Baron and Baroness and at Pensic, it was Iceland's War. That's where all of a sudden I've forgotten the king's name. Talavar in Iceland, working in Queen. And she was then dying of cancer.
And everyone knew.
Everyone knew, and everyone loved her.
This is why all of the separate kingdoms allied with the middle. Because your queen, we intend to honor her and her struggle.
Right. I got to, Libet was still active then, Mistress Libet. And she's a nurse at that time, and she was an ER nurse. So we got, she had volunteered to be a lady in waiting for Iceland. So I got to tag along and help with that. Had a lot of fun people by that, including, especially we got to wait at the royal feast. You know how they have the feast every Pensic of all the royals.
Yeah.
And somebody's crown prince and prince came in late to the feast wearing bunny furs and having had a lot to drink. And the princess is going, "Come here, your hiney," and then and then going, "Bring on the dancing boy." But the whole point of the story, see, I digressed that time. The whole point of the story was that was the first time that Nordscopen had a baronial unit.
Because the fighters of Nordscopen had gotten used from the start to showing up and fighting with their household, which might even be based somewhere else to begin with, or some other group. More than once we attached ourselves to Castle Rouge and followed them around.
Right. But so that was the first time we had a Nordscopen unit, which worked out well for the Nordscopen unit. It was only one person besides the Baron, but it was labeled, and that person, Lachlan Del Glen, who I remember with fondness in my heart to this day, and will always mention his fame, meant that he got to fight with the Squires units.
Yeah, because the word went out and eventually reached N19, where all of us were camped, that Her Majesty wished to recruit squires with, of course, their knight's permission, to be her personal guard fighting on the field.
That's awesome.
It's like, oh my God. So went over and I, showed her my red belt, which I had one at the time. And I said, I've heard that you are asking for squires to do this. And I would like to beg, and I remembered not to say boon,
A favor.
a favor in that as Baron, I have an army and he is here. And could he also join in? So it's like, okay, so here's your favor. The Queen's Guard was a hoot. They took a night off vigil, Sir Fern,
Oh,
to lead us. And we actually had a real banner carrier. And it's like, wow. So he's got stick and sword. And he's got that pouch you carry banners in on his belt. And damn, he went with us everywhere. He kept edging towards the front, in fact.
well, if you follow
And-
the banner, you follow the colors.
Yep. And Fern led us walking backwards mostly because she was watching us and looking over her shoulder and looking over there. Found out later she specifically picked a part of the eastern line that had a lot of round shields only and a lot of duct tape on the fighters. And because these are probably not the most experienced fighters. And she headed us towards them. We advanced at a trot until we got as far away as you could run from. They had started kind of retreating, just sort of shifting backwards, not actually giving up ground. And Fern says, all right, get them. And we charged through. I was in the second line. I managed to find somebody to hit. We came through the other side and she said, okay, form up. We're going to go over there. So we went over and introduced ourselves to another section of the line, tore through them, and turned around and, well, that was pretty much it. Because after all, there were excessive numbers of allies on Mid-Rome side. The East was gone by then.
So that was Nordscopen's first baronial unit at Pensick. And because of that, then we started the payment to the baronial troops at 12th Night. And
At 14th century rates.
at 14th century rates, a penny a day or 2 pennies a day or 3 pennies, whatever.
2 pence a day.
Yep. And I'm pleased to say that that's something I think that they still do, right?
I'm not sure. It carried on at least for a long time.
It carried on at least through Deja and what's his face? I can't remember names today.
Deja and Edward.
Edward, thank you.
Yes, because I was going to say I did see them pay their army at a PA when Tom was still holding it.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yes. it's a really cool thing, and I'm glad that it's still going. I do feel like that's some of our defining moments, is creating traditions in Nordscopen, which hadn't really formed any,
Yeah.
and seeing a lot of those carry on. The first night in Nordscopen, Sir Ajax the Sinistral, who moved into Nordscopen from the Outlands. Speaking of hoots,
Outlands.
We're the out.
It was his idea to start Nordscopen's warlord tourney.
It was supposed to be based rather on the Grand Outlandish.
Yes.
Well, it had a slow start. I believe the first tourney had 3 fighters, including the Baron.
Yeah, the whole idea was to wean people off the idea that there had to be a Baron or Baroness leading the army as a fighter. It's like, no, let's have a warlord who will be in charge of that. And that way we will lessen the cult of personality aspect of having the cornet.
Yep.
But I had to be in the tourney because otherwise it was only 2 people.
Yeah. But as you know, the warlord tourney ended up being merged with
Warriors Day.
Warriors Day from Yaravetler and became what we all know and love as Warlords and Warriors, or Warriors and Warlords, however you want to say it. Dub.
Yeah. I believe they used to at least switch off depending which barony was the barony of the lead autocrat.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, and speaking of moments, I have to say that the moment when Iceland came out on the cart and spoke to us, and we're all on our knees, and we're all just gushing stuff out. It was like, boy, nobody better try to stop us. We carried that on for the bridge battle too. We were put in front until an ally was substituted to go in front of us, and when we hit on the bridge, I remember getting up after I'd fallen dead and gotten cleared off the bridge, and I was going, oh, the 9-10 of us had cleared an extra 10-15 feet. It's like, don't get in my way, sucker. So it was great.
I had forgotten that you had that emotional moment with that.
People forget that our consorts or inspirations like can light the biggest fire of passion for us. Like Roder and Julia, when Julia, before she moved out of Kingdom, like we would have done anything for her that year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was my one and only Penzic, but it was amazing.
Exactly. Well, like Jeanette, when at the last second she virtually has to rule by herself. It's like, yeah. Other favorite SCA war stories. Now, this happened at Penzic, although it's not really a war story, but my favorite probably of all time is the Griffin stickers that we had at Penzic one year. The Post-it notes, the Griffin Post-it notes. And I will say that these were the results. You may have heard Count or Duke Morgan say that Penzic, he really wanted Northshield to own Penzic. And he was coming up with all sorts of crazy ideas. And Lucia kept looking at me going, no, we can't let him do that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So he wanted to do things to claim different pieces. So the Post-it notes with the Griffin were the result of that. And we ordered like 5,000 little Post-it notes and gave them out to everybody who camped with Northshield, and then started slapping them on everything. And it resulted in, Mistress Mizey came up with the idea for the gigantic Post-it note that they painted onto a couple of white bed sheets. They did this in camp over 2 days, and then during the night they snuck it up onto the hill
and installed it where the Roman numerals are.
Yeah.
On the hill.
Yeah. And just like waited for people to see it, and it was like, oh, that's so great. And people were like, at Midnight Madness, people were going, I want to be claimed by Northshield. Okay, slap. Oh, yeah. Yay, Northshield.
And of course, part of the you did come up with the Post-it note idea, right?
Yeah, that was
And-
my idea.
Yeah. And it's worth noting that the company that makes those things is based in Nordscopen. So we got no, we didn't get a discount.
But it was locally sourced.
It was
Yes.
locally sourced. Yes. And then, of course, the Valkyries added
Yes.
a lot to that particular Penzic.
I have not been, but I've heard all the stories.
Do you have any other war stories?
Oh, well, I could come up with a
Or
bunch
should
of
I not
them.
ask?
That's fine.
Okay.
Oh, after the Iceland's Queen's Guard thing, back at camp, I heard from somebody who had been in the Eastern Army. He came over and said, was it true she was leading the troops? They saw this lady leading them and walking backwards faster than they could walk forward. And they said, yes, we were trying to keep up with now Sir Fern. Really? Yes.
She used to be ours. We love her.
Fern?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. Very briefly
Very
when
briefly.
she was studying at our university. But
Yeah. Okay. La, 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 la. We talked about that.
Mhm.
Da-da-da. Oh, I'll give you a weird defining moment. One of the questions is, what was one of your most defining moments?
Mhm.
So being very young and being Baroness, because that would have been, I wasn't 30 yet, but I was probably older than 25, because that's when I got married. I learned a lot from you, but I also learned a lot from experiences. And I was trying to anti-follow my predecessor, as it were. And
distinguish yourself.
yes, differentiate myself. And one of the things that hit home from me was when I got a thank you letter from somebody outside the barony for something that I had done, that I considered, I barely remembered it, but it was something that I considered I was supposed to do or have done.
Part of the whole daily being a gracious Baroness.
Right. But I mean, the letter made me cry because it apparently it had happened to her at a moment where she needed it most. And there was no way I could have known that. And that was a big learning moment for me. and struck home to me that up until then, I certainly hadn't realized how my everyday actions can affect other people. I can never judge how that's going to affect other people. Granted, I'm still not the best at that.
But
You can get a lot of opinions there, but
there are just times when if you're trying to be a good person, you can bring the magic for somebody.
or just try not to be a shit. You can bring the magic.
Yes, well, there's that, because we're not stuffy.
Yes, we're not stuffy. In part of our
We were told that once.
Yes, in part of our travels around the region, because we firmly believed that as the representatives of the crown, which is what it says when you accept the baronial hats, you not only represent the people to the crown, but you represent the crown to the people. So we traveled a lot trying to do that. And there was one event we went to, I think it was in Wisconsin. And it was a smallish group. And the event was at two different sites. One site during the day for, the martial activities and stuff going on that. And then in the evening, they had a VFW hall for the feast.
Yep.
But being out of town, we really had nowhere else to go. So we drove and it's like, but they had made clear feast hall wasn't going to be open until X time. So we just kind of sat in our car and, read or chatted or whatever. And at some point, one of the cute little people came up and knocked on the window and said, "Do you guys want to come in? We talked about asking you in and whatever." And I said we should because I remembered that you're not stuffy. So that's become kind of our mantra because we're not stuffy over the years. So we try not to be stuffy.
I'm probably the one more likely to fall into that.
No.
Yeah.
I like smaller events. As I said,
talk to people.
I can actually talk to people.
Yes.
I like smaller events where there are fewer people and they're centralized in one location so everyone can see everything that's going on. And it's harder than at smaller events, it's harder for people to go, "Oh, I don't need to do anything. Somebody else will take care of that."
No, all hands on deck.
At smaller events, it's clear everyone's got to help. Everyone's got to contribute something.
Well, and as it says in the description in Corpora of the Pelican, they say, contributing, I forget what his effort, beyond that normally expected of an SCA member. In other words, some effort is expected from everybody, and it would be well to assign yourself something at pretty much every event until you get really old and weak and creaky. Okay, yes, I do. But
there's different ways of helping at
that's
events.
true.
You still gear up and you help with authorizations.
Because I authorized fighter, I can do authorizations.
And I do tourney heralding and
Composition of poems.
yeah, well, I view my my bardic additions to feasts as adding to
The accoutrement.
right. It's adding to the magic.
Mm-hmm. And that's our job. That's our primary job as peers.
Yep.
And I think
Yeah.
some of our compatriots forget that.
Yeah, one of the things there is somewhere, I keep stumbling across it, a conversation that includes Duke Finvar, and various people chime in, and it's all recorded. And one of the things that gets said more than once is the concept that peers are the hosts of the SCA. It's our job to welcome people in and help them enjoy it.
Mhm. And that's usually what I say. I'm a host. This is my job.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Look, I've reached the pinnacle of this said activity. I can semi-relax as far as that goes, but I still need to provide a good time for those behind me."
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. So I'm looking at the things about Northshield. Favorite Northshield quirk. My favorite Northshield quirk is the sense of humor. we make things funny.
After one of our early baronial courts, somebody came up and said, "I don't want to criticize, but I think you're doing it wrong because you're supposed to be the epitome of dignity and being like a monarch and, serious." And there was way so much laughter during that court. And I said, "Yeah, I'm sorry. We're going to keep doing it that way."
Well, it's a balancing act.
Yeah. Well, yes, you should be able to pull your dignity around you for certain activities.
Right. When you sit in court, yeah, that's going to be. But as a whole, Northshield has a sense of humor. I mean, we explode fake cows.
Boom.
Yeah.
We take a tank to war.
We take a tank to war, exactly. We put stickers on things. We make bad puns. Yeah.
We like to bring the joy.
Yes, we like. So that's my favorite Northshield quirk. Do you have a Northshield quirk you like?
Oh, I wrote down generosity of time and effort. We will do for each other things that are really not reasonable to expect from anyone, but we'll go ahead and do it.
That's what I wrote down as my one of the things I think is best about Northshield.
Well, see, I just drew a little arrow connecting.
Oh, you're so clever. People's generosity and their excitement about whatever their geek is at the moment. Let me see.
Well, and that was one of the topics was advice for people who are just starting.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things, the biggest thing I would say is don't stop at doing one thing. Try everything, even if it turns out that, well, you're not actually very good at that, or that's an awful lot of work for you and you don't want to do it anymore. I will probably never collig or illuminate a scroll again because it takes so long. But it means I really appreciate these gorgeous works of art that get just casually handed around as awards at events.
Yeah, learning how to do something lets you appreciate it. I was going to say that's also my favorite. My advice is, and I believe I've said this before in the past, that one of my favorite parts about the SCA is that there's always something new to learn. And over 40 years, it's allowed me to learn, I started with calligraphy and illumination, went into garb out of necessity because I like clothes. I like different clothes. I like pretty clothes. Turns out I hate to sew. So when I make clothes, I make them really well because I don't want to sew something more than once. But Middle Eastern and European dancing, the games, plays, singing, bardic, theater, pottery. I'm really kind of become a nut about English floor tiles, which is really nobody else cares about.
And it's pure subject.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
It was everywhere.
kind of falls in the realm of mosaics, only bigger.
They're different.
Well,
We
I'm
can
not.
have this discussion.
I'm not saying they're not different. I'm just saying that some of the process, because you can make beautiful mosaics with the floor tiles.
Yeah.
It just all depended on the application.
Yep. Spinning, tablet weaving, because I had to go into tablet weaving to do something with the stuff I was spinning. Heraldry, various. I'm a good shouty herald. I'm not such a good book herald.
Yep, you're a field herald, and field heralds are so important.
Yep. Embroidery, archery, thrown weapons. There was a time I dabbled in armored fighting. Then I found out I was pregnant and decided maybe I shouldn't do that.
Yeah. All right.
Well, there was also you had trouble after being hit. I noticed you had the tendency that some fighters do, where you got angry. And since I was practicing with you, I was going, okay, you don't have to hit that hard. Don't have to hit that hard.
I have no idea what he's talking about. So my advice would be, go to classes, go to meetings, see what people are doing, walk around. If something looks interesting, stop and ask about it. People never mind talking about their nerdy stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the big thing is you don't have to be afraid or shy about talking to anybody. It doesn't matter what stuff they're wearing that may look intimidating, because underneath they're just like you, just older or been in longer.
Yeah. We're older.
And done stuff. Yeah, well.
Yep.
May not be older. People can actually join the SCA who are my age already.
I know.
It's okay.
I wish my dad had one.
Yes, he would have had fun with
He
all
would have.
the handwork things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to talk about what I wish was improved.
Okay. Is it going to be loaded?
No, well, no.
Even if it
Maybe.
isn't, I don't care. You can do it. I just
Okay.
wanted my own disclaimer.
I feel like there is lately in Northshield more emphasis on prowess to the detriment of the chivalric virtues.
Ah.
When I joined the SCA, that was much, that was reversed. The virtues were, the courtesy, the generosity, the courtliness, playing games seemed to be much more the emphasis. I missed 12th nights, where the event was about the people, about games, about court, dancing, these events where it has to be everything for everybody, and therefore it gets huge. It makes my head hurt. I'm not like those. So as Caradoc said, as when we were talking about this earlier, prowess isn't I don't think prowess is one of the chivalric virtues. So I had to go look it up, and it's not. And I'm not saying it's not important. Prowess is an accomplishment, but as he said, so is cleanliness.
They're both things you should pursue.
Yes, yes.
And achieve.
So that's where I think that Northshield can improve. How about you? That wasn't so bad, was it?
What I came up with was, one of the things that has changed in Northshield since we left the Middle Kingdom was that we're much, we are and remain less formal about titles and such. You know,
In the
It-
bedroom, yeah.
yeah, it is well to bow to people of higher rank, of lesser rank, ladies, gentlemen, children, because it indicates that you have seen them, you appreciate them, and you're glad they're there. In the mid realm, I can remember more than once having somebody say, "You didn't bow to that countess as she went by." I didn't know she went by. It's like, oh, but you're supposed to be paying attention when you see other people doing that. It's like, oh, there must be somebody important. And it's like, is that really necessary? Because one of the things I learned upon becoming Baron was that it's a real relief when people stop bowing to you all the time and they can just treat you like a person. Our first Tenzig with the hat.
No.
You guys
Okay, so
make
I'm
it
out.
anywhere?
So I'm out shopping and still quite proud of the coronet, right? So I'm wearing it while I'm shopping.
They're even bigger than these
Yeah, and gold.
and gold.
And gold. So I'm wearing it while I'm out shopping, and I pick something up and I'm asking the merchant, will you take a check from me? And the merchant looks at me and says, well, I won't take them from everybody, but you've got a hat. So I know you're trustworthy. And I went, oh, I'm just a baroness. At which point you kind of went up. Oh, just a baroness.
Well, and of course, it also meant he can find you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like, yeah, okay, fine. Yeah. Okay. What do we what do we think that people should never forget? Oh, and this is where I'm gonna go. Kudos for the Griffin Tales, because we should not forget our own history. And we are definitely in danger of doing that. Just in Nordscopen, Caradoc and Rosenor are the only two people left around from when I joined. And that's a lot of history lost. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, no, I joined before I came back from before Cadwallon came back.
Yeah,
He was in the
in the Navy,
Navy
in the SCA, but elsewhere.
elsewhere.
And there's a picture of him in armor on the USS Nimitz.
Yep. So kudos. That's what to you guys for preserving our history before
Before it's
we
lost.
become dust in the wind, as it were. And related to that, there are certain people that I truly don't want other people to forget, Northshield to forget. Queen Jeanette is one I mentioned. I think right now, because we're not traveling and probably because she's taking a well-deserved step back, I think people are in danger of forgetting Jeanette.
And her graciousness.
And her graciousness and her joy.
Yes.
I was as I was creating my list, there's obviously Sir Angus. Anyone who knows him, his name comes up. But it also includes people like Dre and Crispin. And the things that these people have in common for me are the fact that they have a joy in something that spills over and bathes on, onto other people. And their joy in whatever their particular thing is doesn't demean or ignore or debase anybody. So that's one of the things that I admire, and I want other people to remember those people for that quality. There's also people that I admire that maybe are in danger for being forgotten. Khan,
Yes,
for one.
because he's not around. Well,
'Cause-
Gwyneth, for that matter. There's still dozens of us who remember her, but
right.
incomers are not going to know her unless they go down to Callantyre.
Right.
Well, at least she's close.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
And-
and she's on the list of board nominees, so do write in and say how good she'd be there, having done it before.
Applaud. The other thing, the other group of people that I admire are those who can tell, either, compose good songs or good stories. And Windrith, obviously, Khan's in that group. Mistress Alison McKieran Dew. Very few people remember her who are not from Nordscopen, but she is the woman
Not that many in North.
who wrote my favorite all-time SCA song, Malcolm's Ride, which you've heard me sing.
Oh.
That song to me is almost like the epitome of the SCA. So Windrith, Owen, Orla, Arwa, Brendan O'Corey, who used to live up here in Nordscopen, Khan, Covely, who wrote Matilda, which I don't know if you've heard it, but
Not yet.
oh, you need to hear her sing it because it's intricate enough. I can't sing it. It's got a syncopated beat, and it's about Matilda.
Yeah.
She also wrote a song though that every single time makes Duke Morgan cry. It's called The Hedge Knight. So
Looking for it.
Yeah. And the Fariots, Ken and Lisa, and I can't remember their SCA name off the top of my head, but a Band of Brothers is his. We Band of Brothers, yeah.
Yep, I heard
So
that.
all
Yeah.
good stories. And I wish I was a better composer of stories like that. I also envy Morgan a little bit because he's got an insane ability to create on the spot a good speech. And I can create a good speech or a good toast or a good intro, but it takes me a couple hours at least. He'll do it on the day in the 5 minutes before he has to say it. So, I mean, yay.
I used to do that. I mean, I still kind of now, but it used to be more song form, but that kind of died.
Well,
I got
it's
rewired in
like,
the army.
yeah, it's like everything.
Oh,
If you
yeah.
don't use it, it gets rusty and you kind of lose it. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot. Who are the people you admire in the SCA?
I started to make a list and then realized I wasn't going to ever be able to finish it because, I said, oh, well, there's the obvious ones. There's Gwyneth, Tarek and Fenia,
Convenient.
yeah, Fern, Caradoc, whom I've only met like 3-4 times.
There's the story. Ask me.
And I keep thinking about it. I think of people like Crispin, people like, I have completely forgotten his name. He was an enthusiastic fighter, and I remember him helping me tote my armor back from the woods battle. I was just going to sit there for about 15, 20 more minutes before I'd be able to put it all back on and walk back. And he just came along and said, "Yep, we're going back now." People do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Everybody who carries water out to the fighters, oh my God. Having done a little bit of that, it's a lot of work.
And sometimes
You
not always
appreciate-
appreciated.
Yeah,
which is just wrong.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. You're sometimes appreciated at the time. Actually, you're often appreciated at the time, but every once in a while there's this clunk. Oh, they're not happy. They're under happy.
Oh, advice.
Yes.
And this kind of came to me. If you're looking for something you can do to help, you can either ask somebody if they need help with something. I mean, that's a real easy thing to do. Hey, you need help with your armor? I'll help you. Or,
Or look pitiful enough. Yeah.
yeah, or look around and say, oh, those chairs need to be moved, or look for something that you think needs to be done. Service is not something necessarily that you can teach, but for the Pelican, if you want to be that peer, that leader in service, you can't just help. You have to lead and get others to do things.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an advice necessarily for a newcomer, other than, you know what? If you want to get to know people, help in the kitchen, wash the dishes, sweep the floor, carry somebody's armor out for them.
Hold the door open.
Hold the door open. Exactly. There, people meet you faster when you're doing something.
Yeah. Well, and I can recall at one point finding out that the reason none of the locals came up to help those of us who were toting chairs,
Yeah.
was because we were all important people, apparently, and they assumed that that's who should be doing that. And it's like, yeah, that's the important person thing going way too far.
Yes. Yeah, majority of the time, I'm not Sir Ajax, and sometimes I'm like, no, don't even say sir. It's not the right time for it. There's a
Yeah.
time and place, and this isn't it. We're just talking.
There is. So if I call you Bubba, well,
No, because I would then say that's my son.
no.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
I'm glad he got the new hood.
Oh no, that's the other son. That's the
Oh,
older one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. I
Okay.
really wish we could show it off.
Oh, well.
Oh, yeah. Because where would that be? Yeah.
That's why we dress up, so we can show off how lovely we look.
No,
Exactly.
I wear all this every day.
You know, wearing a wool hood in this kind of weather is not a bad idea.
Yeah. Although indoors, it gets to be very wool like.
Very wool-like. Yes, yes. My last thing is on my SCA bucket list. Someday I want to go to an event in Europe at a castle, a real castle. I think that would be marvelous.
Yeah. I'd like to see some of the places I've read about.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of them. I recently read about the gold fields of Ghana and the trade with them, where basically you bring a pile of stuff and leave it and go away. And if there's enough stuff, they'll fill the hole you made next to it with gold. Or you can pack more dirt into the hole, so you're asking for less, or bring more. And eventually an exchange is made. It's like, okay, well, that hasn't happened, I'm sure, in hundreds of years, but I'd kind of like to see the spot where it was done.
I was just going to say, when was this and who was trading with Ghana?
Mostly the Portuguese.
We need more Portuguese in our society.
Yeah,
Shout out, Ernesto. Pickle? Isn't he Port-
Italian.
Oh, sorry. Never mind.
Yeah, it's the last name that's
Yeah.
Falconetti.
Yeah. Jose, on the other hand.
Jose. There we go.
Mhm.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes. Okay. I was going, wait, that could be Catalonian pronunciation. No, it's not. It's okay. It's the other end of the peninsula.
Yeah. We've been to events in other kingdoms, although we've never been to an event on the West Coast. Okay, so back in the day, back when it was just us two and we were, trying to learn all that we could so that we could share that knowledge, we subscribed to all the kingdom's newsletters. What were they? How many were there?
I think at the time there were easily 7.
Yeah, I was going to say 6 or 7. So, and we would read those, and they were fascinating because it was a good way of kingdom
anthropology.
Interkingdom anthropology. And the West had a survey in one of their early newsletters about how far are you willing to travel to an event, because they had just had a confusing thing where 2 groups hosted an event on the same day within 4 city blocks of each other. So you could go to one and then walk over to the other one and then walk back to the first one. So they were having this little survey, and the first
and also to guide the new land trust that was being set up. Yeah.
Right. So how far would you be willing to travel to an event? And the first option, I believe, was less than 30 minutes, right? Less than 30 minutes. Second option was 30 minutes to an hour. 1 to 2 hours. 2 to 3 hours.
And then
more than 3 hours. And it's like, we couldn't get to an event in less than 3 hours. It's like, holy moly, Rocky. Vastly different SCA experience.
Closest group is 50 miles for me.
Yeah.
And that's a short trip.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have any other questions for us?
No, not really. I mean, you guys made it easy, made my job easy. Thank you.
Yeah, you should have enough material by now.
Oh my God.
We're going to use all of it.
Yeah.
We're going to use all of it because I think this is important. Because there's a lot of things I don't know about Nordscopen. I came in a weird time. I came just as we were leaving Principality, becoming Kingdom, and I had a crappy job, so I didn't get to travel much until later. So for me, this is also my way of catching up because my crappy job kept me from going to places like Canada to see Hagen get elevated.
Yeah.
Right. So
oh my gosh, we forgot to tell you when Castle Rouge got its first night elevated. Grimmelwolf.
Oh.
That was at Penzic. That was a great Penzic. So the Northshield group is all camping together, and what was his name at the time? It wasn't Grimmelwolf.
No, it was kind of with an M.
Anyway, it's Grimmelwolf now, and obviously long enough ago. But he got knighted on the field at Penzic from Castle Rouge. So he was one of ours, and it's like, the whole group is all the way home from Penzic. You know how you drive and you stop at and you run into everybody at the next rest stops or everything. It's like, so we see each other and go, Grimmelwolf's a knight! Grimmelwolf's a knight!
And he was indeed wearing his chain and I believe his belt.
Yes, at every rest stop.
Nice.
Yep. Sorry, I forgot that. Yeah, the excitement of somebody from this end of the world getting knighted back in the day. I interrupted you.
Oh, it's fine.
I'm sorry anyway.
because those moments still exist, but it's much different now. Just
Mhm.
like for me at least, because it's easier. But when I moved to this portion of South Dakota, there was one night. Now there's three of us.
Mhm.
Those that follow us go, there's nights here? I'm like, yeah, there's three of us. Wow. I'm like, it is wow. Because there used to be one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like I said, when I joined, Nordscopen didn't have any nights, and our first one was imported.
For quite a while, our fighting practices were 4 to 5 people.
Mhm.
And at that point, I think our membership was at regular meetings was easily 20. Um, so that's still a decent turnout for the size, but
Mhm.
Yeah, back in those early days, the baronial membership requirement was much lower.
yeah, I think it was 25.
Yeah, I think
So
so.
20, yeah. And that's pretty much what we had for the longest time, right around there.
But that was one of I view as one of our biggest accomplishments is that we grew that when we stepped up, the barony was 25 people. When we stepped down, it was over 200.
Well, yeah, there's a limit to how much credit I'd take for that.
Well, yeah,
'cause-
shush.
Because I always feel like all we did was get out of everyone's way.
Yes, bingo,
It's like,
bingo. And the best ideas often came from somebody else. And we went, that sounds good. Make it so.
many people are enjoying that. Yay!
Yay.
Well, that's a good skill leaders should know is if talk to
Mhm.
your people. Don't do it all.
Yeah.
Utilize what is around you.
Yeah. We are, however, Minnesotan enough that we had trouble asking people to help us carry our stuff
We did not have retainers.
until one forced himself upon us. Nordley was like that back then. And yeah, he was very dedicated. We kept telling him, you could find other people to help with this. And he'd give us a sidelong look. I think he was thinking we should find. Yeah, but everybody's busy doing their own SCA thing, you know.
It was a different okay. So that reminds me of something else. It was a different world then. And it's a different world now. We were talking with other people. You and I were also talking about this. There was a time when we were definitely part of the cool kids, the people in power.
We got to sit at that lunch table.
We got to sit at that lunch table. We got to know everything that was going on in the kingdom and influence it.
At least talking about it.
But that circle of life has turned, and we're not that. And that's okay. It's other people's turns.
How it's supposed to go.
It is how it's supposed to go, but it's hard for a lot of people to remember that.
On the other hand, too, again, I think this may have been Finbar told me once that the SCA was only designed to operate with kingdoms of, say, 50 to 100 people. So because I mean, the original corpora said every kingdom has to have a capital. All officers must live within an hour of the capital. Now, I never experienced.
It was original corpora. Nobody remembers it.
I've never experienced a kingdom that worked that way, so it was gone by 74. Although there again, the Middle Kingdom was quite capable of ignoring impractical rules because, how far away from things are you? They'll never catch us.
Okay. Feeding off that, I don't know. Tell us to shut up whenever you want us to shut up. But yes, Midrealm was quite capable of ignoring rules that it didn't like,
Or
or
that it
interpreted,
didn't know about,
or that it did.
or that would be inconvenient.
So there was a town hall meeting back in the early days of Northshield becoming, the exploratory time period. And we were at this discussion event that was being badly run and was quite tedious. So for fun, this is how tedious it was. For fun, I was reading my paper copy of Corpora.
Woohoo!
And it was like, I ran across something. Now this was, we'd already had some prince and princesses, and who had stepped down and become viscounties. Those viscounties were being recognized, bestowed by the mid-realm royalty. Well, according to Corpora, mid-realm royalty should only be doing that when there wasn't a successor prince or princess. So I'm reading Corpora and I'm like, does that say what I think it says?
Certainly implies it.
And I turned to Fina, does that say what I think it says? Kind of looks like it.
It's an exceptional thing that happens when you no longer have a former prince and princess.
Right. So the prince and princess, the prince and princess are supposed to be recognizing the viscounties. And I knew that they hadn't been. I knew that the mid-realm had been. So I wrote to, was I herald at the time? I don't remember if I was a herald time. But anyway, I wrote to the middle herald who was in charge of protocol, and I said, this says this, and I don't think we're doing it right. And I don't think we have to go back and make a big thing of it, but I think just going forward it should be.
Because among other things,
fixed.
Why have a principality if you can't unload some of the stuff on them?
Right. But so I got stalled. Oh, did I get stalled? Oh, years of I got stalled and denied and no. And yeah, I even took it up to the board. So there was one time I thought it was going to actually occur.
Oh, because the crown of mid-realm had agreed. That's what that meant.
Yep. But the outgoing person who would have gotten their viscounty didn't like the successor who would have given them the county, so talked the mid-realm royalty into continuing. And then yelled at me when I said, you knew I was working on this. Why did you not let me know you were going to do this and let me believe it was going to happen? Anyway, so that's where I first met, not first, but had ended up with a long discussion with Elise Catherine, who was queen of the mid-realm at the time. She was Valharic's queen. And she has ties to Nordscopen because her ex-husband was from here, and she still keeps in touch with what she calls her sister-in-law. So she comes back occasionally to visit.
Nice.
So her big thing is she'll look up and say, the sky is really blue here. Because in many places to the east, it is not so blue as this.
But so I explained the whole thing to Elise Catherine, showed her all the history of correspondence, which I kept. And that is why I am a pelican. And as she's, giving me my little medallion, she's saying, this is because you can yell at royalty.
So this is now permanent.
That's my motto.
Permission.
That's my motto.
That explains some past years while I was on royal staff.
Yes, I take that advising royalty seriously.
And I do appreciate that you ask questions, even for my current office. I appreciate that because, like, well, ask this, and this, and
thank you.
It's so damn
and
tedious.
That's one of the other things I appreciate too. Is in my tenure in Northshield in the SCA is that I've been able to meet and interact and get to know people of different backgrounds and different experiences and different economic statuses and, ages. It's keeping me young. It's keeping me getting introduced to young people instead of just the old parts. Uh, and it's helping me. I may not always agree, but it helps me see those other viewpoints. So I do appreciate that. Sorry, I blathered. I blathered. Go figure.
Wait, that's my job.
It is. We're adorable, aren't we?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
For a given value of adorable. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
you guys get along really well most of the time. I'm sure like any other couple, but you definitely give a good example of people to follow
Aw,
in that
thank
regard.
you. That was nice. We should go on that note.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you too
Bye.
very much.
Until fate brings us shoulder to shoulder to stand as brothers again.